is an essence, so that all necessarily and always are in the divine essence. So all of these, which is exactly what the Muslim position is, that these so-called energies or attributes of God subsist in his essence eternally, and he actually uses the phrase creating.
Right,
so now you're going against Gregory Palamas. So is this the point where you tell us that Gregory Palamas is wrong?
So allow me to reply.
Is this the point where you tell us Palamas is wrong?
Allow me to reply.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I've got no problems with what he's read. Gregory Palamas makes a distinction between the essences and the energies. The essence of God is unknowable. The energies of God are what God does in reality. I've got no problem with the idea that God has always had the ability to create, that he has always had the ability to have providence. Got no problem with that, because the things like God's mind, God's will, have always been there, are always part of who God is. What I have a problem with is Islamic theology, which says that God, one of his titles, is that God is completely self-sufficient and independent from creation for all that he is, including all of his attributes. And then one of those attributes is to say that God is merciful. Mercy, by definition, requires a transaction between the mercy giver and the one who receives mercy. So you can't have an irrational contradiction that says that God is merciful always, but yet the reality that mercy is a transaction. By contrast, Christians don't have this problem, because the mercy of God, which is an energy of God, which therefore is uncreated, is something that comes out of the fact that God is love, that God has a mind, that God has a will. So the difference between our two theologies is that Christians create a distinction between the essences and the energy, whereas Muslims maintain that Allah is a monad, a tawheed, a one, not a plurality. So my question to you, Jake, is, are you saying that within the oneness of God, there's a compound unity, there's a plurality within the oneness of God? Is that what you're saying?
Okay, so let's go back to what just happened with Bob, okay?
So you're not going to answer my
question? No, I'm going to answer you. I'm going to explain to you what you just did. You diverted from the whole thing. The fact of the matter is, what I'm demonstrating here for the audience is that Bob is using catchphrases. He's using language of essence, energy, distinction, but in actual fact, he has no idea about the theology of Gregory Palamas. He's never read the triads, because if he did, he would know what the energies of God is, but has no idea about them.
So was it wrong?
Let me finish. I'll let you speak.
You did.
Okay. So when I asked about providence and creating, you said, yeah, that makes sense. God can't have providence from eternity past when he can't be providential over anything.
I retract that.
But Gregory Palamas actually said, what did he say? That no, God's providence is from eternity past, meaning he didn't need creation in order to be provident over something, which is the exact same thing that you're accusing Muslims of being incoherent. So what is incoherent is you're representing a theology and attacking Muslims, but what you're actually attacking is what you yourself are claiming to represent. That's the incoherence. Why? Because you have no idea about Gregory Palamas. You've never read the triads. You don't understand his theology.
Okay, so can I reply?
Yeah.
I noticed that he didn't actually answer my question.
Because you're not dealing with the crux of the matter.
Remember, the question was, does Jake believe that there's a plurality within the oneness of God? Because Gregory Palamas does believe that there is a plurality within the essence of God. Gregory Palamas does believe that the energies are plural. That's what Gregory Palamas believes. He says, I don't understand, and I'm not claiming to be an expert, but remember, he's not an expert either. And he's admitted that.
I'm quoting right from him.
Furthermore, don't interrupt. Furthermore, I am not wrong in my understanding of the energies. The energies are the actions of God. They are what God has done in the world. Now, What I would suggest to you, ladies and gentlemen, is before you just assume that Jake actually understands Gregory Palamas, is that we actually, and I will, and we'll go away and we'll dig into some more of what Gregory Palamas says. But the reality is, when we look at what Islam teaches, if they are going to use the essence-energy distinction as a defense to their theology, then they must admit that God is not a monad. That within the oneness of God there is a plurality, because very centrally to the whole point of Gregory Palamas' argument is that the energies are plural. So I'll ask you again, because you avoided it. Are you saying that all of the Muslims here who for 5 years have told me that God is one, that he is a singularity, a monad, that they're all wrong and that there is a plurality within the oneness of God? Is that what you're committing yourself to?
I'm saying that you have misunderstood the Islamic doctrine, because everybody here knows, unless they're really in complete denial of the fact, that we believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one, but he has multiple attributes. Nobody denies that, except those who have a heretical understanding of Tawheed. So, to answer your question, yes, we believe that God is one, but he has multiple attributes. Now back to the point.
So there's a plurality within the oneness of God?
He has multiple real attributes.
Are they
just like you, Bob, you go around saying, oh, he has 99 attributes. So you're acting like you don't know this.
So within the oneness of God there is a plurality.
Listen, I just explained it to you.
What about the body parts?
Every Muslim, yeah, so you want to move on to another point.
You want to
move on to another point. So I want to get back to the point which you talked about earlier, providence.
You're running away from the point.
I want to get back to what you said earlier about providence, that God could not be provident unless he had something to be providential over. What does Gregory say? For was it not needful for the work of providence to exist before creation, so as to cause each of the created things to come to be in time out of non-being? This is a question he's asking. Was it not necessary for a divine knowledge to know before choosing, even outside of time? But how does it follow that the divine foreknowledge had a beginning? How could one conceive of a beginning of God's self-contemplation? And was there ever a moment when God began to move toward contemplation of himself? Never, he says. So the fact of the matter is, as I said again, Gregory Palamas says that in terms of creating, in terms of God's providence, he's directly contradicting what you're claiming about the essence energy doctrine.
Jake, you've got to listen to what I've said. So what I said on that issue of the providence, I'm happy to retract my statement.
Okay, so let's understand it further.
No, hold on 1 second. Because you, as quickly as you could, got away from the fact of the plurality within the oneness of God.
Nobody's questioning that. Everybody believes in multiple attributes. You're just stating an obvious fact.
The essence of God, the essence of Allah.
Yes.
Are the attributes of Allah does the essence of Allah, is it shared amongst the 99 attributes?
What are you talking about? I don't even understand the question.
You see, this is the point. If you're saying that Allah has 99 attributes, and let's move on to his body parts, because I think this.
I know you want to move on.
Yeah, we are going.
You want to move on.
Jake, why are you interrupting?
Because it's hard on you. What's happening is hard on you right now.
No.
It's hard on you. I know it is.
We can both do the interruptions, but
I know it is.
you, when I start interrupting you, you'll complain.
No, I won't.
Right, great. So now I'll interrupt you then freely. So
no, because you're talking about me, then I'm going to interrupt.
Jake. So. The reality is, Muslims talk about Allah as a monad, and they use that as an argument against the idea of the Trinity. They say that one can't be three and three can't be one, but what they're saying here is that Allah is a monad, he is a singular entity with body parts, hands, shin, face, eyes. Now, these things are real things according to Islamic theology. He's not even listening now. He's not even listening. So my question to you, Jake, is these attributes of Allah, his hands, his shin, his face, his eyes, Muslims here believe that they're real things. Do you believe that they're real things as well?
Okay, Bob, are you done?
Are you actually going to address my point?
No, I'm not.
No.
You know
okay.
why? Because
Fair
you're
enough.
diverting from the actual issue.
No, not at all.
You've made a
No,
claim.
the issue
You've made a claim.
was- no, the issue
You've made a
was-
claim.
the issue
You've
was,
made a
remember,
claim.
when
Hold
we
on a
came-
second.
No,
you
wait,
said
wait,
it was
wait. You
incoherent.
said you didn't want to do
You
it.
said
You
it was
said it was okay to
incoherent. Hold on.
interrupt, because
You
remember
said
you
it was.
interrupted.
My
Do you
friend,
remember when you did that?
You said it was
Do you
incoherent.
remember when you did that?
You said it was incoherent
But now you
for
don't like
God
it,
to be
do
a
you?
creator before creation.
It is incoherent.
Exactly.
To
but
call
Gregory
him a
Palamas.
creator,
Okay.
call him a
Okay.
creator.
Let's see who knows Christian theology better, me or Bob.
No.
And who do you?
No,
Who?
no, I
Okay.
would like you to
who?
address
Who?
the point,
Who
Jake.
should we believe?
Jake.
Should we believe Bob in the
Jake.
park,
Jake.
or should we believe Gregory
No, or
Palamas?
should we believe Jake's
Gregory?
interpretation of
Okay.
Gregory
So
Palamas?
I'll let you guys
That's
be
the
the judge
question.
of this.
Remember,
I'll
you've
let
got
you guys
two
be the judge.
non-experts talking about
Okay,
Gregory
so
Palamas.
let's do this.
So the best thing
what
that
we're gonna
you
do
can
is
do, ladies
we're gonna
and
have the
gentlemen,
experts. We're gonna have the experts watch this. We'll have the experts
ladies and
watch
gentlemen,
this,
the
and
best thing
then
that you can do,
we'll have the
best thing
experts
that you
watch
can
this.
do,
We'll have the
best
experts
thing that
watch
you can
this.
do is go away and study Gregory
Okay.
Palamas.
Okay.
That's the best thing.
Do you
can
agree
do.
that Dr. Branson
So-
is an expert?
Yeah, we agree.
Okay, so how about this?
Right.
Dr. Branson, I'm going to send you this video afterwards, and you tell me who's representing the essence energy distinction properly. Okay?
Are the energies plural?
Yeah, they are.
Does Gregory Palamas
He
base the
accepts that.
idea?
He accepts
Base the
that.
idea. Right. So the energies are God's actions. Is that also correct?
Not totally, not necessarily.
Right. So in terms of the energies that are uncreated, things like the mind, the will. I'm guessing that's what you're talking about.
What do you mean?
So we're talking about the mind of God, which is not an action; it's just there. The will
Okay.
of God is not an action; it's just there. Are we talking about that?
What-
As the are you
what-
defining those as energies?
This is what I'm saying. You
I'm
don't know what
asking
the
you-
energies
I'm
are.
asking you, Jake.
What's your
are you
position?
defining?
What's
no,
your
no.
position?
Don't answer a question with a question.
What's your position on it? Because
Jake,
you're
Jake,
representing essence
Jake,
energy theology,
Jake,
but you
Jake,
don't know it.
Jake,
You don't know it.
I've never stated to be an expert of Gregory Palamas.
Why are you representing something in the park that you don't understand?
Because Muslims are making claims
Okay, how
that
about
are
this?
irrational.
How about the, and I'm okay.
The description of Allah is irrational.
can
if
you-
you state that Allah can't enter into his creation,
Okay.
then you've got to be able to explain how the Quran exists.
Okay, so let me
Which is where we started.
address
And you wanted to get away
let me
from that
address
as
the
soon as
incoherence. Bob
No,
is
Jake,
the epitome. Hold on a second. Let me make
Jake,
my
no,
point.
He interrupted
No,
and you
no.
weren't asking him not to
Let's-
interrupt me.
Okay,
So
how
answer
long
my
should I
question, Jake.
how long should I let you talk?
Well, we could have timed it. If you want to do a time.
Okay,
part,
go
we can
ahead.
do.
Talk for a minute.
Right. Shall we get a timer?
Go ahead.
See, the thing is, you get upset if you're interrupted, but you were happy to interrupt me.
Who said I'm upset?
Well, by the way you.
I'm not
behaving right
upset.
now. Go on.
I'm not upset.
So, Jake, are we going to do a timer?
Finish your point. Go ahead, Bob.
Right. So Muslims are making a claim that Allah can't enter into his creation. But then they're saying that the Quran is really the speech of Allah. Now, then they say, Muslims say, that Allah, that something that is created is not like Allah or his attributes. But then they say that their recitation of the Quran is created. This is an irrational contradiction. You can't maintain two positions in conflict like that. Whatever my failings are in my knowledge of how Gregory defines the energy essence distinction, which is a red herring to the point of whether there are irrationalities to Islamic theology and whether God can enter into his creation, is the key point. If you're saying, ladies and gentlemen, that nothing that God creates is like God, but then you're saying that the recitation of the Quran is like the speech of God, you've contradicted yourself. And I'd like you to address that point.
Bob, do all Christians agree with you on the essence energy distinction?
So are you going to answer my point?
Answer the question, because you
Oh, wait,
you're saying
not
this,
answering my
you're
question,
saying
but you're
this,
demanding
you're
that
saying,
I answer
you're
yours.
saying, you made a claim. You keep talking
Jake,
about.
you're
You keep
literally-
talking
you're
about.
literally
You keep
demanding I
talking
answer
about
your
Christians
question
versus Muslims.
when you're
correct?
not
This
answering
is, you're
my
saying this
question.
is Christians
Yeah, but you
versus
timed it. We're talking
Muslims.
about
Are you saying that all Muslims agree
I'm
about the body
asking you,
parts
do
of
all
Allah?
Christians agree with you on the essence energy
Okay,
distinction?
no, of course not.
Okay, so why are you asking?
But
why are you?
but do all
why are
Muslims
you
agree about the
representing
body
this?
parts of
Why are
Allah
you-
being real?
Okay, so let me.
And so, wait,
Okay.
wait. Do the
Give me 1
Ash'ari
minute.
agree with the Salafi
Give
about
me,
the body
give me,
parts of
give me,
Allah?
give me 1 minute. Give me
Jake,
1 minute.
answer that question. Answer
Okay,
that question
go ahead.
because you ask questions.
Okay,
but you
let
don't
me
answer.
let me talk. So Bob is here in the park trying to represent all Christians, but the fact of the matter is he knows that not all Christians actually agree on the essence energy distinction. As a matter of fact, the Catholics don't. They don't agree on it. Majority don't actually agree on it. Also, the fact of the matter, him saying that it's incoherent to state that God could be a creator without creation. Well, let's listen to St. Athanasius himself. He said, and a man may be made or called maker, though the works are not yet. But father he cannot be called, nor can he be unless a son exists. And if they curiously inquire why God, like Bob here, though always with the power to make, does not always make, though this also be the presumption of madmen, which is Bob, he's a madman right now. For who has known the mind of the Lord, or who has been his counselor, or who shall say to the potter, why did you make me thus? However, not to leave even a weak argument, they must be told that although God always had the power to make, yet the things originated had not the power of being eternal. So the fact of the matter is, St. Athanasius says that you can be a creator without creation.
No, Athanasius did not say that. The quote actually said that God has the power to be the creator.
And that's what
I
creator
don't
means.
deny that. But to be a creator, you actually have to create. Now this is further. Now notice that Jake avoided my issue completely about the Quran. And the reason why it is an issue is because the hadiths state in Sahih Muslim 804, recite the Quran, for on the day of resurrection it will come as an intercessor for those who recite it. So the speech of Allah will come before Allah and intercede to Allah for those that recite it. And what's the Muslim understanding of the fact that the hadiths actually say the Quran? Not the action of recitation, doesn't say that here. It says the Quran will come as an intercessor. But an intercessor is personable. And the one you're interceding to is personable. So the attribute of Allah is talking to Allah himself. That's a contradiction to Islamic theology.
Ready? Okay, so again, what I'm demonstrating here is Bob doesn't understand Christian theology. I have to teach him. I have to teach him what St. Athanasius said. I have to teach him what St. Gregory Palamas says. Now, the incoherence is not in Islamic theology. The incoherence is within Bob. And don't worry for the Christians watching, I'm not going to put it on Christian theology. Why? Because I can actually read Palamas myself and he understands the point. Just as St. Athanasius did when he said that God can be a maker or creator in the sense that he has the ability to create, which is exactly what Muslims say. The act of creating itself has a beginning in time. Those are two different things, from the ability to create and the expression of the attribute, which is what Muslims have always said, and been talking to the wrong people. Or maybe you don't understand Islamic theology.
Okay, ready? The reality is that it is a complete contradiction to say on one hand that Allah is completely self-sufficient and independent of his creation, and in every respect, including in all of his attributes, and then to say that Allah is the most merciful. Because mercy by definition requires a transaction between the mercy giver and the one who receives mercy. Christians do not have this problem because of the energy essence distinction. Now we're having two separate conversations here. Jake is no longer engaging with the arguments that I'm making. And the reason for that is because he doesn't want to defend the contradiction of saying that the Quran is the speech of Allah, but then having to deal with a source that says the speech of Allah intercedes to Allah for the believer. Instead, he has to reinterpret the hadith and call it the deeds.
No, what I'm actually doing is I'm showing that Bob is attempting to represent Christian theology. Hold on a second, man. You had your turn to talk, please. So, Bob is attempting to represent Christian theology. He's acting as if all Christians actually agree with his theology, but they don't. Even St. Gregory Palamas, who is the one who crystallized essence-energy distinction, does agree. He tells you that creating and providence are eternal energies of God. But yet Bob doesn't know that, because he thinks the energies of God are limited to God's action. He couldn't even answer the question as to whether or not there are eternal energies. Imagine that. Bob came here representing essence energy distinction and doesn't know if there are energies that are eternal. I want everybody to witness this, and we'll go to the experts to see whether or not Bob is so inadequate that he doesn't understand the own position that he's representing.
So what we've got here is two different conversations going on. There's now no interaction between the two of us. I am challenging the irrationality of Islamic theology.
Do you have Ben's number?
Claim on one hand that
I saw him, don't worry.
totally independent of his creation, and then ascribe to Allah the idea that of something that requires a transaction like mercy. Now, Jake has obviously got something that he wants to drive home about me, that I am ignorant of Gregory Palamas. Great. I'm ignorant of Gregory Palamas.
Thank you.
What does that prove in terms of his understanding of Islamic theology, or the defense of Islamic theology, given the criticisms that I am making? Notice he's avoiding all of my questions. He's come here to attack me ad hominem, but he's running from the subject of the debate, which is himself. Sorry, not himself, the topic.
Actually, I've responded to all of his points, if you actually notice, and I'm using his own scholarship to show him that his own scholars actually agree with the Muslim position, which is what we've been going over this entire time, which is what? That God can be a creator without creation. Why? In the sense that he has the ability to create, which is the attribute of creator, and then he expresses that attribute with his will. He has that ability. Now, Bob, unfortunately, he doesn't even know that Gregory Palamas considered will itself to be an energy of God. Why? Why am I bringing this point home? And I keep harping on the same point. Because Bob is here in the park attempting to represent Christian theology and the essence-energy distinction, but he doesn't even know whether or not you can have eternal energies, which is the very basics of Gregory Palamas' theology.
Okay, so he made a big deal about the difference between Thomistic divine simplicity and Gregory Palamas' energy essence distinction, and the fact that not all Christians agree. Well, not all Muslims agree about how God's body parts should be understood. Salafis believe that these are real things, which opens up another question. If the hand of Allah is a real thing, but you can't conceive of a hand in any way that you understand, what's actually being communicated? Whereas the Asharites believe that all of these things should be understood as simply metaphors. So simply pointing out that groups within religions disagree is a non-point, because Jake here doesn't represent all Muslims either. So what point does he make? He's got one point to make, which is that I don't know everything about Gregory Palamas. That's his only point.
No, the point is this, that unlike Bob, I can admit that there are distinctions within Islamic theology. On his hand, he's coming here representing Christian theology, and in his debate with Hashem, which I recommend people watch, he's saying, we Christians believe in the essence-energy distinction, and keep saying, we Christians believe in this, when in actual fact, the Catholics do not actually believe in the essence-energy distinction in the way that Bob is representing it. So the problem is not that there are differences of opinion within Christian theology. The problem is Bob misrepresenting Christian theology and making it appear to the audience as if Christians always agree. But this is what he wants to do, and that's why he won't debate any Christians in public, because he wants to make it seem like we all agree. But in actual fact, all Christians don't agree, even on the basic points which he's attempting to represent.
So, ladies and gentlemen, if you watch videos of Jake says, we Muslims believe. I've seen him do it myself. But the point is, not all Muslims agree with Jake. The Shia certainly don't. So the reality is, Jake also does the same thing. It seems that Jake has come here because he has been stung by the fact that Islam has a description of Allah that's contradictory. And I'll try to dig into that a little. I would ask Jake to give me an example of mercy that is not a transaction. Now, I don't deny that there are differences amongst Christians. That is what Jake says about me, not something I've ever said myself. Furthermore, I don't deny that God has the potentiality to do things. But what I don't do is attribute to God that he has done something and is independent of his creation.
Okay, so what Bob has done, because he's avoided the entire thing, again, the fact of the matter is this. He is claiming to represent Christian theology, and he keeps talking about the essence-energy distinction, but the fact of the matter is, we've seen a clear demonstration that he doesn't even understand the basics of the essence-energy distinction. He can't answer as to whether or not you can actually have the energies that are eternal. He said, well, yeah, we have energies that have a beginning, but he said, I don't know as to whether or not there are energies which are eternal. We appeal to St. Athanasius, and we also appeal to St. Gregory of Palamas to show that Bob's entire argument against Muslim theology actually goes back against his own scholars like St. Gregory of Palamas, who is the one he's claiming to actually represent. Now, okay, Bob, hold on one second. Hold on one second.
I'm going to reply.
Hold on one second. I have to go. So this is going to be our last point.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, the one who has run away from the debate here is Jake. Jake ran away from the debate about the oneness of Allah, about the body parts of Allah.
That's a lie.
Stop my time.
That's a lie.
Stop till next time.
That's a lie. That's a lie. He's got an appointment at 5 o'clock.
We'll wait until you're done.
He's got an appointment at 5 o'clock.
We're done.
Don't deceive.
Are you done? Are you finished? Thank you very much. Right, ready?
Deceiving muppet.
Go.
Go ahead.
So the fact of the matter is, Jake had the opportunity to answer my questions about why the speech of Allah has something created that's just like it. Why the speech of Allah intercedes before Allah. And I'll point it out again. The hadiths don't say the actions, the hadiths say the Quran. Jake ran away because he's come here to make one point only, which is that I don't know everything that Gregory Palamas says. I'm happy to concede that. That's not a point, it's a frivolous point. The reality is, how can Allah be independent of his creation if he has as attributes things that are transactional to creation?
No, what I've come here to demonstrate, which is clear to the audience, I hope, is that Bob is inadequate to have these conversations. He doesn't even understand. Forget about knowing everything of Gregory Palamas. I certainly don't, but he doesn't even understand the basics of the conversation. He can't answer as to whether or not there are energies which are eternal, which is foundational to his entire belief set. So, he also doesn't want to highlight the fact that Christians on these basic points, actually some of them agree with the Muslims and not him, Gregory Palamas, and also St. Athanasius. But one last point, the main problem with Bob is he doesn't understand his own Christian theology. He has a hodgepodge of all different views, and because he doesn't understand them and uses basic just catchphrases, the problem is he's putting things together that are incoherent. So the incoherence is with you, and many other Christians are waking up to the fact, such as Ben. Thank you.
There we
All
go.
right, guys, we finished now. That's it, yeah?
Okay.
All right, thanks, Bob.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jake.
Look after yourself.
Take care, guys.
Take care.
All right.
So we'll do a wrap up. Wait, Bob. Wait.
All right, I need these things off me.